A game that lives up to the hype, you can pretty much count on that when it comes to this year's Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen maybe all but locking up the league MVP award with another stellar performance. Bills win 48-42 in Detroit. I'm Kevin Carroll with you once again.
And I'm Andy Young here at Ford Field. And what more can we say about Josh Allen? Coaches have called him an alien, Superman, a freak. I'm here to say he's the best player in the NFL, period.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andy. I'm looking at this in a way I've never looked at Josh Allen before. Early in his career, it's, wow, this guy's kind of wild, but he's fun to watch. We'll see what happens, see if he matures. Couple of seasons go by, and yeah, he's looked at as one of the top players. But this, to me, Andy, I just view Josh Allen so differently right now, looking around the NFL at other players who are in the conversation about league MVP. And I just think week after week, Josh Allen just shows that he's just leaps and bounds against everybody. And he's not even leaping over anybody this year. But he did it once again. Andy, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns through the air. A down performance for Josh Allen after what we saw in LA last week. But again, this dude totally carrying this Bills team at times who were dealing with injuries on the defensive side of the ball. But holy cow, is he fun to watch.
I said it during the game. Josh Allen feels like he is inevitable. And by that, I mean unstoppable almost, unless he does it to himself. We saw in this game everything that he's capable of doing. He can run the football with the best that we've ever seen in the NFL. He can throw the football both downfield and in short range with accuracy now. Some of the best we've seen. And he's using his smarts. He's not turning the football over. He has taken his game to another level. He's distributing the ball to multiple players, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, making plays happen with his feet, extending plays. Look at the play he made deep downfield to Keon Coleman. Other plays, 4th downs. I mean, it just feels like a snowball is rolling. And yeah, maybe at times during this season, the stats weren't eye-popping and even as good as some of them have been for him in past seasons. However, when you look at moments and key plays in games, that's where it matters most. That's when you need your most valuable player. It's not always the guy who puts up the most stats. Oh, by the by, he's putting up massive stats as the season heads down the final stretch. But it's the guy who makes the biggest plays in the biggest times. And time again with this guy, we see it, that he's taken his game and his performance to the next level where it's almost unstoppable. And you are surprised when he doesn't make the play.
And it was next level play calling by Joe Brady in this one, Andy, in this win over the Lions. And Josh Allen executing everything almost to a T. You'll hear players like Allen and stuff saying that they left some plays out there. And for sure they did, Andy. I mean, I can think of some off the top of my head. But how can you not feel confident when push comes to shove that Josh Allen will deliver when he needs to? You mentioned the Keon Coleman pass. You mentioned the 4th down pass to Ty Johnson. There's a pass to Dawson Knox later in the game that he floats in there. I mean, just incredible. The design runs, the awareness to get down now when he has to after he gets the 1st down. The look on his face, Andy, when they cut to him on the sidelines, that look you would see every now and then of a Josh Allen who maybe wants to do everything himself too much is just chill now, waiting for his time to get back out there and deliver.
Yeah, I mean, he might do everything by himself on certain plays. He doesn't have to do it all game long because he is playing so well within the system and outside of the structure. It's really incredible. So Joe Brady, shout out to him. Like you said, he dialed up a hell of a game in this one. I loved some of the running back plays, some of the misdirections and counters to James Cook, who had a monster game. We'll get to that, I'm sure. Passes to the running backs, finding the tight ends. I don't think the wide receivers had a huge game, but there were some huge plays individually. And that's what this team really is all about. It's this cast of characters who, when put in the right positions by Brady, and Allen is playing at the top of his game, which he is right now, is just picking defenses apart. Khalil Shakir, some big plays. Kincaid, Knox, Johnson, you mentioned it. Matt Collins chips in here and there. You didn't hear anything from Amari Cooper in this game. Oh, by the by, he's still hanging out. You've got him when you need him. Last week it was 14 targets. This week it was a bunch of nothing, but you didn't need it. And that goes to show you how dangerous this team is right now. Ray Davis gets involved. The offensive line, you got to shout out those guys. They did another nice job in this game, especially really getting the running game going consistently from the beginning of the game on, which they did not do against the Rams.
Ty Johnson, Andy.
He's a revelation.
If you put Josh Allen aside, Ty Johnson, amazing in this game. 5 catches for 114 yards. The bulk of that, Andy, comes in the first half, and just so clutch and called on at the right time. Romo might have mentioned this on the broadcast, so maybe that's why it's in my head. But you talk about catching the Lions unprepared for something. I don't think they were prepared for Josh Allen to be going to Ty Johnson early when he did, and for Ty Johnson to be producing the way he did.
According to Bills PR, Ty Johnson is the first Bills running back to go over 100 yards receiving in a game since our old buddy Fred Jackson did it 14 years ago back in 2010 with the Ryan Fitzpatrick crew and Stevie Johnson and those guys and Chan Gailey. So, I mean, that's really lofty company to see him in that light. He has been just a great player for this team this season, both as a change of pace in the passing game. He's done damage in the running game. He's also their best and most reliable pass blocker in pass protection as a running back. And that's no slight to James Cook or Ray Davis, who both strong in that regard as well in terms of playing in the passing game. But Ty Johnson is just another weapon that you can't focus on all of these guys, right? You're worried about what Josh is doing, and if you're in man coverage and Ty Johnson's back in pass protection, and then they leak him out, or they slide him out of the backfield, or on a 4th down they run a wheel route to the running back. They did that a couple of times in this game to massive success. I mean, we saw Ty Johnson in previous games have big plays, and he's just becoming a big part of the offense, and it doesn't matter which of those 3 guys is on the field. Somebody's going to make a play typically. Ray Davis gets a touchdown in this game too. James Cook, 2 of them. So, I mean, this was a all-in-all great performance on the ground to the tune of nearly 200 yards. Ty Johnson, fantastic in this one.
Yeah, we didn't see much, if anything, from the running game in the loss to the Rams a week ago, but now you have James Cook over 100 yards rushing on 14 carries. Those 2 touchdowns. Ray Davis, who did nothing against the Rams, finds the end zone in this one as well with a receiving touchdown. Those guys just all chipping in from top to bottom. And James Cook, I mean, he even had a guy pulling his hair, and he just kept on going. This was a game where, when all the hype, Andy, surrounding it, like this is, oh boy, this is a Super Bowl preview. You look at all the ways the Bills could hurt a team, and they did it throughout the entire day.
Yeah, I mean, James Cook, what a physical presence he has become this season, right? The book on him was that he was the speed guy who was a little bit smaller, who was good in the passing game coming out of Georgia. He has developed into a physical running back when he needs it. Like, you see him consistently powering ahead for more yardage each and every time when he needs to make a big play. You saw that 41-yard touchdown run, long hair, pulled hair, don't care, from James Cook, because, I mean, he gets his hair yanked back, then another guy comes, he bounces right off of him, and he takes it to the house. So, I mean, that guy is putting up, he's well over double digits. I think he's up to like 13 touchdowns now, when his previous career high rushing touchdowns was 2 each of his first 2 seasons.
Right.
So he has been fantastic. You pair that with Josh and what he's doing on the ground, and then you sprinkle in all these other guys making contributions here and there, and it's everybody eats, right? It's that thing we talked about all spring and training camp. Everybody eats. Well, there were games where not everybody was eating. Some people weren't even snacking, and that might be the case from game to game, but I think when you talk about the whole picture, the general outlook on this offense, it is everybody eats, and that has been mostly successful for them this season. I mean, another game where they put up 40-plus points.
Saw the stat online from the NFL. They mentioned it during the game, Andy. 30-plus points in, I think this is now 7 games in a row or something like that, puts this Bills offense on par with the '07 Patriots, the greatest show on turf in the Rams, Peyton Manning's team in Denver that just put up a ton of points when he broke the touchdown record. And there you have it, the Buffalo Bills doing the exact same thing as those teams did. It's just incredible, and goes up to this point, Andy. I think I told you a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the Bills putting up 30 points that it just didn't feel that way to me. It didn't feel like when you sat down and watched the game that the offense outside of Josh Allen was some sort of juggernaut. But the last couple of weeks it has, because they can do it in a couple of different ways. But it is Josh Allen, the trigger man there. You have Dalton Kincaid back in the lineup. He had 4 catches. Keon Coleman back in the lineup. He only had the 1 catch, but it was an amazing catch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw a stat that they put up 40 points in back-to-back games for only the 3rd time in franchise history. I mean, they are just cruising right now. You're talking about 90 points in 2 games. And they came in as the 2nd highest scoring team in the league, and it's not the typical way that a team would seem to do that. You remember, I mean, Peyton Manning put up like 55 touchdowns that year, and Tom Brady had 50 touchdowns, and with Randy Moss and Welker and some of those other teams that you mentioned had these big stars putting up huge numbers. Allen's putting up the numbers, and I think he's already getting close again to continuing to push his own NFL record of total touchdowns over 40 again this season. He's, I think, 3 shy now. But it's just a different, like, it's that everybody eats again. I hate to go back to that, but so many different guys are contributing, and it's different people every week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we'll look at the offensive line. I was critical of them in the run game post-game last week against the Rams, but as the week went on, kind of changed my tune to put that, you know, the Bills were in pass mode because they were trying to chase down the Rams, just like Detroit was in pass mode trying to take down the Bills in this. But, Andy, Khalil Shakir with 6 catches doesn't stand out to me. I didn't think he had that many, only for 39 yards. But, you know, the next receiver on there is Mac Hollins with 1 catch, and then you had Keon Coleman with 1 catch. So now we're seeing these different ways and different styles that the Bills can beat you with. And, I mean, it's pretty amazing with the last 3 games that the Bills have, and the fact that they need to get healthy, and we'll talk about the defense in a little bit, especially on that side of the ball. It's just amazing that you can just watch this Bills team do what they're doing.
And you know what's happened too, Kevin, is the big play has come back.
Right.
And it might be yards after catch. It might be a bomb downfield. But at one point in this game, it felt like Allen was getting 20 and 30 and 40 yards a pop on some of these plays. I mean, you look at it, he completes 23 passes for 362 yards, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's, you're right. I mean, Ty Johnson had the biggest day, but I mean, Shakir has 6. Kincaid, you mentioned, has 4. And then just a whole bunch of different guys getting involved in this game. And it's really, really impressive what they're able to do from that perspective. And they're going to have games where they're going to need Amari Cooper to have a big day or Keon to have more than 1 catch. Shakir is kind of just steady as he goes. And, you know, this week he didn't break a long one, but he's due again because he does that, right? He just seems to every few weeks have that kind of a play. So they've just got so many ways to beat you, and it's really impressive, especially as the offensive side of the ball seems to get healthy as the defense continues to trudge through these injuries.
Well, that's the other part of the sword here, Andy, is that the Bills defense has allowed over 40 points the last couple of games. Yeah, 42 in this one, but we were looking at a Lions offense that was the highest scoring offense in the league going into this. And oh, by the way, the Bills safety group extremely banged up, and they lost Cole Bishop. The Lions, the Bills getting out to an early lead. The Lions were in pass mode and at times looked like they couldn't be stopped. So is that really that big of a deal? I know the Patriots, Jets, Patriots left, but 2 weeks in a row now with over 40 points allowed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same 40 points as it was last week where Matthew Stafford just did anything he wanted all game long. You got to remember, for the most part, the Bills held Detroit to 14 points through the third quarter, basically. So they were in desperation mode at the end. And yeah, they were ravaged by injuries, were the Bills. I mean, they came into this game down 3 of their 4 deep secondary starters with Rasul Douglas out, with Taylor Rapp not playing, with DeMar Hamlin not playing. You're down to Kareem Jackson coming up off the practice squad, which he did earlier this year. And you're talking about Cam Lewis and Cole Bishop. Well, Bishop goes down through the course of the game. So you've got Jackson and Cam Lewis, who's basically your Swiss Army knife as a backup nickel, cornerback to Taron Johnson, and the backup safety. So he slides in. Still didn't see Micah Hyde yet. Obviously, he's not quite ready. If these injuries persist, maybe next week we do see Micah Hyde make his debut, which is the exact scenario we kind of talked about, right? That you get through those couple of weeks of ramping up period for Micah Hyde, and then maybe you see him the final few weeks as a practice squad call-up. It'll be interesting, but, you know, shout out to this defense for doing what they had to do, especially early, right? They caused some trouble for Jared Goff, got him off his game. He wasn't hitting guys like Matthew Stafford was the previous week. So that really allowed the Bills to build that lead offensively and then hold on for dear life at the end. Talked to Taron Johnson, and he said, look, we basically were in 2-minute defense almost the entire second half. That'll gas you out eventually, especially when you're dealing with the amount of injuries that they were in this one. I mean, Dorian Williams was in and out of the game. Matt Milano was in and out of the game. You're talking about a whole host of different people and backups really kind of just hanging on for dear life at the end there. But overall, defensive line, much better performance this week. I mean, they held the Lions rather to under 50 yards rushing, I think, which was a huge matchup that we discussed coming into this game because of the two-headed monster of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery that the Lions present. They never really allowed those guys to truly get going, which then sets up everything else for what Goff likes to do with those talented receivers and tight ends that he has. So shout out to those guys who took a lot of fire from the media and from fans last week after that performance, Ed Oliver being one of them. Those guys, including Ed Oliver, really shined through.
3 and out to start the game, Andy, I thought was huge in this one because then you get the ball and go down and score the touchdown. But you're right. The fact that that defensive line was able to actually get to Jared Goff a few times in this one was a nice step forward. There were still some times where it was close but no cigar. One of the touchdowns Goff threw looked like the Bills were going to get there. There was an incident where Goff spun out of 3 tacklers, was able to pick up the first down. So there was some of that, but Andy, they were able to get to Jared Goff at times, which was good to see after what we saw against Stafford last week.
Yeah, and you know, like the Amon-Ra deep touchdown, that's a play where, you know, maybe Cam Lewis would like to have that back, just the angle he kind of took. Goff threaded a nice pass in there, and then Lewis wasn't able to make the play. I mean, that's a huge play, and that's kind of a turning point kind of play. I mean, both teams put up over 500 yards of offense. It's just one of those kinds of games where the Bills' defense made more plays. It seemed like even though they gave up a ton of yardage and 42 points and allowed them back into it, what they did early set the tone for the rest of the day and made Detroit play the way they did down the stretch.
Absolutely. Is this a Super Bowl preview, Andy, you think?
Damn well could be. Right? Yeah. I mean, why couldn't it be? There's 5-6 teams, I think, that are probably legitimate contenders. Looks like Philadelphia is really coming on in the NFC. I think that obviously the Chiefs still are, although Mahomes is banged up right now. We'll see how that goes. Pittsburgh lost today. The Bills are who the Bills are. You never want to count out Baltimore just because they're seemingly playing better again. So, there's 5-6 teams, I think, at least there that are legitimate contenders, and I don't see why these two teams couldn't potentially meet again come February.
Between the Chiefs and the Lions, 3 total losses so far this season.
Yeah.
One of them is the Buffalo Bills for the Chiefs. One of the 2 to the Lions is the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, they have beaten some good teams. Now, a lot of flack about, how many teams have they beaten over 500? They lost to the Ravens early in the season. They lost to the Texans early in the season. But look at some of these wins here. And even in the loss, the way they played against the Rams, who the Rams are coming on strong too, right? They're playing well. This is an impressive team, and you're not going to beat every team every time. I mean, that was just a bad day in Baltimore, I think. The matchup didn't work out well for whatever reason, and Derrick Henry goes off early. And then that was just a weird game down in Houston. But if you take a look at how the Bills are playing right now, I mean, they beat the Chiefs. They smashed the 49ers. They have that wild game with the Rams, and then they come here in Detroit and beat what many called the best team in the NFL and put up 48 points on them. So, I mean, this is a Bills team that is, of any year, and there's been a bunch of them, this is another year where it's Super Bowl or bust for this team.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a rebuilding year too, right? Remember
yeah,
that
like
one?
we talked about that. Yeah, I mean, I was part of that camp, and I'll admit that. I thought that they were going to take maybe a little bit of a step back, a little reset year. I thought they'd still be a playoff team, but maybe they'd be overtaken in the division. Maybe they win a wild card game, but maybe they didn't quite have the talent there. But the way that Allen has elevated himself and elevated this team, and the kind of the pieces that they have fit in and continued to grow throughout the season, obviously that's changed. They knew it changed because they went out and got Amari Cooper and thought to themselves, well, let's go out and get some more help for Allen in this offense. And here we are. I mean, we're heading down the final stretch of the final 3 games with them having a chance to go 14-3 potentially if they take care of business against 2 teams that are inferior to them over the last 3 weeks. And then we'll see how it goes. If they can get into the 1 seed possibly or sit in that 2 or 3 seed, we'll see what happens here down the stretch. But, I mean, they've surpassed a lot of people's expectations for what they might be able to do this season. Now it'll all depend what they do in the playoffs, which kind of goes back to that argument we had going into the Chiefs game, like, wake me up in January.
Right.
Well, we're getting close, and we're at that point again.
Yeah, absolutely. Got the Patriots up next back at Highmark Stadium, then the Jets close the season with the Patriots. Hopefully they'll be able to practice throughout the week and not get another snow day. I haven't looked at the forecast, but we'll be back with you again to get you ready for the Pats and the Bills game coming up this coming Sunday. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, thanks for joining us, everyone.